Hello everyone, my name is Sister B and welcome back to another video. So I am a superhero fan. I grew up watching a lot of superhero movies, superhero TV shows. I've read some Marvel DC comics, so I grew up watching a lot of Marvel and DC superheroes. And although that sort of slowed down over the past few years, that love for superheroes is still there. One of my favorite superheroes is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a superhero that I think a lot of us grew up watching since a kid, from the Tobey Maguire movies to the more recent Tom Holland movies in the MCU. Spider-Man has played a significant role in a lot of people's childhood, especially in the modern age, because a lot of us grew up with Spider-Man. And Spider-Man to me is one of those heroes, one of those stories where you sort of I've sort of grown tired of it because there's nothing really new to explore, which is why I wasn't really a big fan of the whole Tom Holland series, because while Tom Holland is a good actor, I didn't think that he brought anything new to Spider-Man. And not only that, the stories were not the best in my opinion, aside from the last one, which the last one was, I can't remember what it's called, but the last one was pretty damn good. I really liked the last one. But Spider-Man as a whole, to me, has sort of lost its touch for me because I'm just seeing the same things. It's almost like Batman in a way where you sort of grow tired with all these Batman, Spider-Man stories because at the end of the day, most of them end up being the same. So really there needed to be something different to sort of spark my interest again with this superhero. And one of the things that really I think is so different from any of the other Spider-Man stuff that I've seen already is Into the Spider-Verse. I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was one of the best animation movies that I've ever seen. It came out back in 2018, and even now I think it does stuff that a lot of animation movies, both in Asia, like anime, whatever, and in the West, just can't replicate. It's a style that I think is so distinct because of the comic book style, but also the story, the characters, everything about the movie was just near perfect. I don't know anyone who disliked the first movie, which just goes to show how really well made the first movie was. And while the first movie had potential for a sequel, it didn't really feel necessary. Yes, there was tease about Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099 at the end, which ended up being a joke, but it could have ended there. It could have ended it with just another joke. But instead, no, they decided to make a sequel. And I don't know about anyone else, but for me personally, when I saw trailers, I didn't really have high hopes for it. And a lot of it is because Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has set such a high bar that I feel like a sequel would just be impossible to meet that high bar of expectations. So I sort of went into this blind. I didn't know anything. I have really no idea what is going to happen. And I came with an open mind saying that, oh, if this movie isn't as good as the first one, it's going to be okay because if it's fun, if it's enjoyable, then I'll be happy. Oh boy, it was fun and enjoyable, all right. The second movie, Spider Man Across the Spider Verse, was so incredible. It was everything that I didn't expect. I didn't expect the second movie, the sequel, to be better than the first one because the first one was so good already. And if you can see by the reviews and some of the YouTube videos people already made, some are calling it the best Spider Man movie of all time. And I'll be touching up on that later, but fair to say, this movie is well received and it's really good. And having just seen the movie literally like a few hours ago, I want to talk about it because I just really, really love this movie and I want to share my opinions with you guys because I just want to get this out of my chest. So, with that being said, this is my thoughts, this is my review of Spider Man Across the Spider Verse. Now, before I start, I do want to give a spoiler warning. Because I'm doing this off the cuff, I don't really have a script to go on. I have notes, but I don't really have a script to go on. And because there's some parts that I really want to talk about, I'm afraid that I might talk about something spoilery. I might reveal some spoilers that people that haven't seen the movie shouldn't know about. So, with that being said, I'm gonna give a spoiler warning right here, just in case I do blur out some spoilers here and there. To start off, I do want to talk about the obvious thing about this movie, which is the animation. The animation is just as incredible as the first movie, if not better. The first movie again set the bar rolling, set the expectations high for this movie, and this movie shares the same similarities, the same style as the first movie did. The charm of Into the Spider-Verse is that each character, each place sort of has its own style. For example, if you look at Into the Spider-Verse, characters like Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Pig, Ellie, all of these are different characters with different styles. Spider-Man Noir has this black and white style because he's set in a noir setting. Spider-Pig is have a more cartoonish style, and Ellie, I don't remember her Spider-Man name, but Ellie has this anime style because she is inspired by anime. And even Miles, Gwen, and Peter might look the same. There are distinctions, there are very slight distinctions between them, and it's evident because when we start the movie off in Across the Spider-Verse, we start off with Gwen, and we see the color palettes of her world. Everything is just way different than that from the world that Miles is in. I think that's really what the special, the unique stuff about Across the Spider-Verse, and I think it's further amplified with this movie because this movie has so many Spider-Man. Like, look at the trailer, there's just so many, and every single one of those Spider-Man has a different style, different animation for them, and that's what makes this movie so good. The fact that each Spider-Man is unique, which further emphasizes that these people are from different universes, and because of that, it gives the movie character. It's those little things that makes the movie a lot better. Animation wise, it's just so incredible. Everything, the fight scenes, just again, it looks so incredible. One of my favorite scenes in terms of animation, cinematography, or whatever you want to call it, is when Miles and Gwen were hanging out for the first time after a long time having not meet each other, and then they meet on this tower on the top of New York or Brooklyn. I don't know where it is. And so Gwen walks up on this ledge, and then she stopped. On top, you could see the city, and then you pan down the camera with Gwen walking to the side and then standing below the ledge. And then you could see the camera also rotating with her. And that sequence was just so smooth and so beautiful. My jaw just dropped. It was one of the best piece of animation that I've seen in a movie, and it's so simple, but it's those little things that makes the movie really great, especially for an animation point of view. And from cinematography point of view, there's a lot of really good shots, really good fast camera movement, but you don't really feel confused with everything that's going on. You were able to track everything that's going on, and I think a lot of praise and a lot of congratulations to the people who did the camera angles for everything, because good cinematography makes stuff even better, and the cinematography for this was just absolutely incredible. Another thing that I really loved about Into the Spider-Verse was the soundtrack. So the soundtrack for Into the Spider-Verse is one of the best soundtracks that I've seen in a movie. A lot of the songs for the Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack are songs that I still listen to this day because they're just really good. And the second movie, I feel like didn't have a good soundtrack compared to the first movie. It's still good, but it's not as good as the first movie. But that being said, though, I feel like the songs choices, the song, everything, it just fits the vibe of how the movie is. I'd say some of the more slow motion, some of the more emotional moments of the scenes of the movie, because this is a different movie compared to the first one. It's a lot more heavy, it's a lot more emotionally driven, and because of that, a lot of the music sort of matches the tone of what's happening in that scene. There's no What's Up Danger, Familia, Star a Riot. There's no like these upbeat songs, but there's a lot of songs that I think fit the nature, fit the vibe of the movie so well, and I think that's more important. Like, it's great to have a good soundtrack, but if the soundtrack doesn't match the tone of the movie, then it sort of defeats the purpose. And although the soundtrack isn't for me personally, I say like I won't be listening to the songs a few years after I seen this movie. I still really do like the soundtrack, and I think much like the first one, it adds to the experience of this movie. Now I want to talk about probably the best part of this movie, and that's the story. The movie, I believe, is 2 hours long, which sounds really long. And during this movie, there are moments where the characters are fleshed out. Characters like Gwen and Miles are really fleshed out. Half of the movie is exploring who Gwen is, stuff that she goes through, her past, her experience in her universe. And at the same time, we also get to know more about Miles, what he's dealing with, what he experiences, his emotions, everything that we thought we knew about Miles are being expanded upon with some stuff that we probably didn't know about Miles before. The second movie, Across the Spider-Verse, focuses on the multiverse, the Spiderverse, and it really expanded upon what the first movie did. The effects of the first movie is carried forward into the second movie with the introduction of the villain Spot. The villain Spot I thought was a villain that the movie made up, but no, the villain Spot is apparently a real villain in Marvel Comics, and it's apparently a joke villain, which is something that was referenced in this movie. While not being the best villain, I feel like the story of how Spot came to be and who Spot is, I think is interesting. Although he wasn't explored much, I think there's potential there. There's potential there for Spot to become a really good villain in this series. But the main thing about the story is the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man, when you think about it, is a tragic character. The choices that he has to make, the loved ones that he wasn't able to save. All this is what built Spider-Man. It's why we love Spider-Man, is because he makes mistakes and he's not able to save everyone, but he perseveres because that's what it means to be Spider-Man. And that is something that is emphasized in this movie. When you think about Spider-Man, you think about tragedy, you think about loss, you think about mistakes. And when you think about it, Miles hasn't really gone through that. The biggest tragedy that he went through was the death of his uncle. And this was something that was pointed out in this movie, is that all these deaths, all this tragedy happens because it's what builds Spider-Man. It what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man. And obviously because of that, there is this one event that's going to happen where a character close to Miles would have to die, because in all the other Spider-Man, that character, that role, the person in that role always dies. And obviously Miles, being close to this character, doesn't want that. He doesn't want this character to die. And everyone around him is going, hey, no, you can't save them, because if you do, you're basically jeopardizing your whole universe. And so because of this, Miles going through that, oh, I can save everyone, I can do both. But everyone was like, you can't. Spider-Man, we can't save everyone. And it's something that is mentioned in the first movie as well. I think Spider-Pig mentioned it, is that we can't save everyone. But Miles, obviously being Spider-Man, who is a young teenager as well, who hasn't been doing this much, who hasn't experienced tragedy, really wants to save everyone. He believes that he can save everyone, but everyone else, who all the other Spider-Men who have been through this tragedy, knows that he cannot save everyone, that this is a sacrifice that he has to make in order for his universe to survive. Because if he doesn't make the sacrifice, he'll doom the lives of millions, billions other in this universe. This whole movie is built around this one choice. Will Miles save this person and potentially doom the lives of his whole universe? Or will he knowingly sacrifice this person, knowingly let this person die, because that's what the universe wants to happen? That's the life, that's the trajectory that he should go through. This makes the story a lot more interesting, and it keeps, at least me, it kept me guessing what is Miles going to do, because by the end of the movie, frankly, I have no idea what is going to happen, because knowing Spider-Man, it can go both ways. It can go with him saving this person and somehow magically everything is fixed, or this person has to die. It really can go both ways. And I think that's what makes this movie so brilliant, because it keeps you guessing. Now, on a final note, before I wrap things up, I want to comment about people saying that this is the best Spider Man movie ever made. For that, I'm going to say no, at least not right now, because the thing about this movie, in case you don't know, this is going to be a two-part movie. So basically, this movie is going to be the first of two parts. And this movie ends in a cliffhanger, like a really, really big cliffhanger. And while this movie is, I'd argue, even better than the first movie, because it ends in a cliffhanger, and because I know this is going to be a first part of two, my whole opinion on this movie is going to be depending on how good the sequel is going to be. It's one of those movies where you're going to view this movie differently based on what the sequel brings. It's sort of how Endgame and Infinity War works. When Infinity War came out, it was this really good movie. We're seeing everything just building up, and then suddenly when it ends, you're thinking, oh, it's not over yet. There's going to be one more movie. And when Endgame came around and it was really, really good, you view Infinity War to be a lot better than it probably was when you first saw it, because the payoff from the second movie was worth it. It made the stuff that you went through in Infinity War feel worth it. And so Across the Spider-Verse, to me, depends on how good the sequel is. If the sequel is not as good or is unable to deliver the stuff that was promised in Across the Spider-Verse, then I'm probably going to view Across the Spider-Verse, for lack of a better term, a lot less compared to when I first saw it, because the payoff just isn't there in the sequel. And vice versa, if the payoff is there, then I'm going to view Across the Spider-Verse to be a way better movie than I originally thought it was. So for me to call it the best Spider-Man movie, personally, I don't think it's fair, because it is a first part of two. And as a standalone movie, although it is great, the story is nowhere near finished. So with that in mind, I'd say it's one of the best Spider-Man movies out there, but definitely not the best Spider-Man movie out there. Again, that is just personal preference. It's just what I view this movie to be as. But with all that being said, at the end of the day, I absolutely love this movie. As someone who loves animation a lot, who loves Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse, I think this is a sequel that I think just blows my mind away, and I think is one of the best sequels to a movie that I've seen in a while. So if you're one of those people who went through this video and have not seen the movie yet, do yourself a solid and please go and watch the movie. It is absolutely amazing, and it's an experience that I think you'll enjoy a lot. With all that being said, thank you guys for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.